Welcome to Sidelines and Headlines. I'm Jim Hardin.
I'm Blake Giles.
Welcome. Thanks to everybody for being with us. Had a big week, first week of high school football this week, and got a big week coming up. College still a couple weeks away. Labor Day weekend is going to be crazy, Blake.
Yeah.
But
We're going to talk about some of the games that were played last week. We also have an interview with Josh Alexander, the Athens Academy head coach. Unfortunately, their season started with a loss, but still good things to talk about. I was able to go to the Prince Avenue game, which was a wild game with weather delays, and talk a little bit about that. And I think you saw some of the Buford-Milton game on television, maybe that too. Also, we hope to have an interview with Dreco Thomas, the athletic director at Cedar Shoals High School, who had a very close loss to Clark Central and almost won that game. And that's quite a change for what the Jaguars did. So all those things that we've got coming up here on Sidelines and Headlines. So if there's somewhere to like this report, check you like it, subscribe to it, tell your friends and neighbors about it, send them a link to it, get the word out about Sidelines and Headlines. And all right. Hey, I'm Blake Giles.
I'm Jim Hardin, and this is Sidelines
and Headlines. And we're with Josh Alexander, the head football coach at Athens Academy, also development officer here at the Academy. And Josh, we want to talk a little bit about high school football.
Let's do it, and thank you for having me on today.
Thank you for being on.
Hey, you were telling me about your background, that you were almost a little bit reluctant to come to Athens Academy 11 years ago. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, I grew up in South Atlanta and went to a public school and worked in public school for 15 years and just didn't know a whole lot about private schools. And so my wife at the time was like, hey, we had just played for a state championship at Archer and had a lot of those individuals coming back, a lot of athletes coming back. So we thought we could win it in 2015. And so she's like, hey, the job came open at Athens Academy, and I wasn't really entertaining. I loved working for Andy Dyer, who I was working for at the time, and loved the school and loved Gwinnett County and loved the kids. And so, well, here I sit today. So you see who wears the pants in my family.
But you were living in Athens at the time, correct?
And I traveled, to Washington Wilkes, to Parkview High School, and then Archer High School. And so the drive did have something to do with it, where it's like, hey, maybe I can drive 3 miles instead of, 43 miles. But it was a good decision. It's been really good for my family. I love the school and the community, and the people here are just really, really neat. The kids are fun to coach, and my daughters have grown up going to this school, and so that's been a real blessing.
Well, I know my kids were involved in a private school setting, and it had a tremendous impact on their lives. And so, private school's not for everybody, but it has its benefits and everything. Well, tell us a little bit about the season so far.
Well, we feel like we got a good team. We happened to lose this past Friday, and we did not lose in a very good fashion, which has not happened here in, a while. So it's been good for the soul. I was out at the track painting the field, and an individual old man was walking around the track. He said, how'd y'all do? Because he's always out there watching us practice. And I said, we took one on the chin this week. He's like, well, sometimes it's good for you. You're either winning or learning. So we are learning right now. And so we just need to go play again. We feel like we have a good team, and we gave up 52 points. So we've had to do some soul searching, but it's been good for us the last 4 days of our life, and trying to just figure things out.
Well, it was a shootout. You scored some points too.
We did. We scored 34 and felt like we could have had 50. How the game gets sort of going into the fourth, where it's like, if you don't go take these shots, the game is you're going to lose the game. So there was a series right there. We took 3 shots to try to score, and we just didn't hit them. And so right then we were like, man, because they've gotten the ball and they've kept the ball. And so it was one of those gambles that we felt like, hey, we better do this because we're going to run out of time.
A lot of schools ran into issues with the weather the first week, with lightning delays and things like that. Did you have any issues with that?
we thought we were going to. We could see it floating around us on the radar, and then we thought, like from a distance you could see like lightning, but they never caught it, and we got it in, and as we were cleaning the field up, it started coming in pretty strong, and the wind was whipping, and the lightning was hit, so it was just in time.
Well, I know you don't coach. You say you like to flush that one and move on to the next one. I know you're probably trying to do that. You don't want to talk too much about last week. Talk about your team in general and just next week. Savannah Country Day there, Is that right?
Yep. We're hoping that we get to play because of the hurricane. And so, as I said before, we feel like we have a really good team. This past game, we lost some 50-50 balls where they threw the ball up and our kid got beat. And we were like, but at times we played good defense. The scoreboard does not show that. So we've just told our guys, like, hey, there's a lot of people in the state of Georgia. Half the state of Georgia lost a game tonight. Right. And so it's not region play. It's time just to figure some things out and do some soul searching. And I would rather it happen right here than Commerce when we do start the region. Last year we rolled through these first 4 games and get to Commerce and started having to figure some things out. We happened to squeak that game out, but we got lucky winning that game. But right now we're moving some deck chairs around and trying to shuffle some things and figuring some things out schematically. We're changing and just sort of hoping that it works out for the best. But we feel like our kids are bought in. They're not bothered by the loss, but it was good for us. Sometimes you got to eat a big old piece of humble pie, and 52 points is a big piece of pie.
Oh, man. Now, Josh, you told me that you had an injury in the scrimmage against Prince Avenue, one of your players, and tore his ACL. I know that's always a hard part to deal with in high school football, but hopefully he'll be back next year, I think you said.
He's a junior. We have the individual's name was Abi Chawla, and we were excited this year. We felt like our offensive line was going to be our strong point, which does not happen at this school ever. 1 year we had a really good offensive line, and that was 2019. Other than that, we've sort of piecemealed it together and put kids in there that always did a great job, but they were either undersized or overachievers in some way. And so we felt like, man, this year, we feel like we have a chance, with these kids, and they have some girth to them. They had a little size to them. We're not monsters by any means, but then in the scrimmage we lose him the last play of the third quarter, and Coach Rick and I said, hey, the fourth quarter we're going to have a running clock and let the young guys play and go have fun with it. And it was the last play of the third quarter when we brought the older guys out, and we were just heartbroken. We're heartbroken for him because he's one of our homegrown kids that sort of loves Athens Academy and loves playing for Athens Academy, and so, but he's a junior, and we'll get him back next year. And we've had to move some things around in that area, but the guy that played it this week did a really good job for us.
Well, you mentioned the guy that scored so many points on you, who I think you said he's going to Virginia. You've got quite a prospect of your own, and the Keon Stanford. Tell us a little bit about him.
He's as good as I've been around. We've had some good receivers here, and we've been around some good receivers in past schools. He's not the biggest, but plays the biggest. I've seen him do things to individuals that were going to the University of Georgia all the way to other schools. It's of just an absolute talent. We had some trouble getting him open the other night because of just double teams, or at about midway through the second quarter, you look out there and they got 3 on him, if he's by himself on one side of the ball, and which is, to me, great coaching. And so I just made a decision. We put him at running back, and we found something that we haven't had here at Athens Academy. We've had some good backs. He touched the ball 6 times and scored twice, and that was really quickly. And so
you're a smart coach, aren't you?
Yeah. We were at our wits' end. He was frustrated. I'm like, man, I can't get you open. We're doing everything we can. And he did score. We moved him from the backfield in the second quarter and jumped him out there, and they just happened to put one person on him, and he scored. If you put one person on him, he's gonna score. And it's like nothing I've ever seen before. And so, and it doesn't matter where that guy's going to school and how big he is. He's like that little bulldog that eats your clothes off. He really is. In that cartoon, you know what I'm saying? He's like the darndest thing I've ever seen. And so, but he's just a football savvy kid. And so we took him and put him at running back, and 3 plays later, he'd scored twice. And everybody's looking at me like, man, why didn't we do this earlier? So it's like, well, I didn't know.
I watched a clip this morning with Nick Saban, and he was talking about, I'm sure you learned this a long time ago, so when it's a critical decision in the game, don't think plays, think players.
People.
People,
Yes,
right. You got to get it to your guy. Especially now, I mean, everybody plays basketball on turf now. I mean, you got guys out, everybody's scheming, trying to get their playmakers in space.
This Sunday when we met as an offensive staff, the first thing I did was like, look, scheme is scheme and fronts are fronts. You know, when you do it 26 years, you're not going to see much of a front that you haven't seen. We're going to block it this way. And I said, for the next 2 hours, I only want to figure out a way to get the ball to him. Don't tell me anything else. Don't talk about lunch. And so before you know it, there's 33 plays up there of how he can touch the ball differently, which is beautiful. Like people paint. Like it was just magnificent to see our coaches go, well, why don't we do this and move this and do this? They can't double. They can't do this, you know, or they're going to have to put this kid on him. So it's that was fun to me.
Well, it's part of the chess match of football is that you know what you want to do, they know what you want to do. Mm-hmm. What can we do to counter each other's moves a little bit?
You know, and sometimes when you play baseball and you got a big hitter, you can only send him up there once, if not 4 times a game. Mm-hmm. You know, you got a pitcher, you can pitch him once every 4 days. When you got a good player like Keon, like you can run him out there every play. Mm-hmm. And so I think as a good coach, you got to figure out a way to get him the ball. That's my thoughts.
Josh, we were just talking a moment ago. Transfers have been a big part of high school football for a long time, and the Georgia High School Association has come up with some new rules. Are they going to be effective? What do you think? Was it something that was needed?
I think it's much needed. If you watch the schools play this past weekend on TV, you see this kid move from this school to that school to this school, and I don't think that's ever going to go away, nor do I think it should go away, because I think people have the right to go do what they want to do. Sometimes you get individuals like ruling the roost of, hey, this kid wants to go play somewhere. We lost a good player this year to a big school over in Gwinnett County, and it does rub you the wrong way, but when it's all said and done, you want that guy to go have an opportunity to go do what he wants to do. If we're not the place for him or the school is not for him, then, hey, go be successful. They're kids. On the other side of it, you just don't want the cheating part of it, of the recruiting another high school kid or taking them out to dinner, or like, you can't control the parents, you can't control the other kids, but you can control the coaches. And then when an individual moves, like, it needs to be a legitimate move. And they need to be able to say, this guy's living here with his family. This is where they're paying the most taxes. You know, they don't own 2 houses and they're renting their other house, and this house they're renting, but they own the other one. And so I've heard it all, and I could go on for 30 minutes talking about the situations, but the main thing's the main thing, and the kid being successful. And you know, private schools always get the reputation of we're the only ones recruiting, and that's so far from the truth. It's everybody, and kids are moving by not getting recruited, and kids are moving by getting recruited. And so it's I don't know if there is a fix to it. I just know that GHSA is doing a good job of trying to keep it under control, and the state of Georgia tries to do a good job of keeping it under control, and that's all they can do. When it's all said and done, people are going to do what they want to do. Mm-hmm.
Do you see the kids, with everything that's going on in college athletics, with the transfer portal and the NIL, does that attitude at least kind of drift down a little bit to the kids? I mean, are they kind of see themselves a little differently, even in the context of high school sports?
I would love to say no, we don't see a different kid, but I see a different kid in the last 5 years of coaching. Whether it's the weather, whether it's money, whether it's academics, or just thinking something's better on the other side. It's always the case. You're always having to recruit your own kids. You're having to love on your own kids, and that's part of being a coach. And so kids they ask more questions than I asked when I was younger. They really do, and they're more curious, and that's their right. You know, like if you're playing here, you have the right to know why you're playing here, and you got to love where you're playing. But that's what I see more than anything. It's just like, hey, they want to know why we're doing this, and what good is it doing while we're doing this. We're out here for 2.5 hours practicing when we could be practicing for 2 hours. Why are we doing this? So you better be able to answer questions, especially at this school. You know, you have some very intelligent young men. We made a joke yesterday. If they started pulling out SAT scores of our coaches on this staff, they would not let me work at this school. So this is a very high academic school, and these people are very smart here. But that's what I see. I just see guys that just want to know. They want to be in the know, and I think they have that right.
Go ahead.
Josh, I know that once the season starts, you get hyper-focused on your own team. But I think maybe you're like anybody else. You look at other scores from the area, and there were 2 scores that I think really jumped out in this area. One was Appalachia winning a game, ending a 29-game losing streak. And in the light of the incident that happened last year with the shooting, people were crying on the field. I'm sure that everybody was happy to see that, in a sense, for them to experience that joy.
Yeah, you get chills thinking about it. I cannot imagine what that coaching staff, the kids on that football team, much less the school and the community, went through, have been through. You know, it's just remarkable, and there's not a more deserving community than that and those kids. And you know, they had a coaching change, and some coaches aren't coaching that went through the situation that are just great men. You know, they're trying to figure some things out for themselves, and so everybody wants to sit on the outside and say good for them, but like, I could not imagine just the feeling that community had, and those players and those coaches had. You know, I would cry too, like a big fat baby. So it's I just thought it was awesome.
And the other one was closer to hand. Cedar Shoals, which was 0-10 last year, came very close to beating Clark Central. I think you saw both of them in the summer.
We did. We thought Cedar Shoals had a good team. There was a lot of good players out there when we threw against them. We thought both teams were great teams, but it was fun to see. As we said before, our community needs that rivalry to be a good rivalry, and I guess coach has done a good job. And but it was, I think Cedar was winning that game up until the end of the 4th almost. I don't know the details, but from what I read and saw, I just thought our schools need that. We need Cedar and Clark to be a good game, and so I thought it was great.
Well, Josh, I've enjoyed getting to know you through Rotary Club. Blake's in Rotary too. I think you're the first football coach I've ever met in Rotary.
Vince Dooley was in Rotary years ago.
Was he?
Was he really?
I know it's hard. The attendance requirement's probably going to get a little tougher this time of year. You actually gave a talk to Rotary a couple months ago. You got an interesting background, learned about you out the cooking grilled chicken. You know how to grill chicken too. You're an expert at that. But I know you have a lot of interest, and I know you care about these kids more than just football. Talk about your family a little more. I know you mentioned your wife earlier.
Yeah, so my wife works at Synovus Bank here in Athens. She's in wealth management, and then I have 2 daughters, a 9th grader, Cortland, and then 11th grader, Laura Elliott. They both go to school here. We live in Athens in 5 Points, and we've been here for 26 years. I've never lived anywhere else. I went to Morrow High School, came here as a student at the University of Georgia, and just met my wife here, and just never left. We thought it was
Now, did you play high school football?
I did. I played for Morrow.
But not college football?
Not college. It's like I told the guys yesterday, I said, you don't look like this and play college football. And you dang sure don't look like this today and play college football. So,
well, I can remember Stuart Todd, who was here as the athletic director. Stuart did not look like a college football player either, but he did play at Duke.
I think that was 1933.
Yeah, it could have
like
been.
I could have played back then. I got the feeling I could have like got on the field, at least been on a team.
Yeah.
Like today, it's not happening.
Now, Stewart did tell me this, that when I think it was after it was Castratus or Presnell or something, before Mike Gunn was hired, he was the head coach for 1 year.
1 year.
He was 2-8. Do you know the two teams he beat?
Who did he beat?
He beat Jefferson and Buford.
I knew it. I knew it. I did know that. That's great.
So if you're only going to beat two teams, that's two
Those
good
are
ones to beat.
Good ones to beat. You can hang his hat, and he's still talking about it. I love him. He come back to. We have a coaches meeting. He came back and talked to us, and he's just full of knowledge and such a positive person.
Well, he and Linda were in a Bible study that I was in, so I got to know both of them very well and
Yes.
think very highly of them.
They are great people. Yeah.
Speaking of Billy Presnell and Mike Gunn, Mike's first year here, I coached middle school football. Billy was the coach, but he just told me another guy just to coach. So we had a great time coaching middle school football. That was in the early 90s. But anyway, and we used to line the fields. That was my job. I drove the bus. I did all kind of stuff, but substitute teacher. But anyway, that's my connection to Athens Academy. And
That's awesome.
Is Presnell still around?
I don't.
He's around.
I don't. He's not connected with the school right now or anything, is he? No. But
But he's around.
I used to
He
see
was a
his
character.
wife B. She's was real estate and everything.
You'll see Billy walking his dog about this time of day right across that dam right there.
Okay.
He walks with Matt. Matt's got a pit bull that eats his dog every day. I watch him. It is like I sit right there and I watch Billy and Matt walk their dogs across the dam over there, and it's just fun to see.
Yeah. Now, Josh, I wanted to ask you one particular question. You told us when you spoke to Rotary that your dad was a butcher and you grew up eating good meat. So I want you to tell us your preferred method of cooking a steak.
Yeah, as I told you guys, I grew up. We didn't have a lot of money, but what we did is we ate well. If there was a damaged box at Colorado Beef, we were gonna get I learned how to eat crab legs. We lived high on the hog because of damaged boxes at the beef company. But my way to cook a steak is pretty simple. As my dad would say, knock its head, wipe its butt, and throw it on the table. So we cook it very rare. My daughters don't seem to think that. And my wife's gotten there a little bit, but I just cook it on the egg, and I cook it slow at first, just pound it with smoke. Sometimes I'll even throw it on the Traeger and just start just pound it with smoke, and then just sear it. And I think it's great. I think the best way to cook it is on the egg, if I had to pick one thing.
I could tell out there when you're cooking chickens, you knew your way around the grill. I mean, you were. I was following your lead.
I like the grill. There's every Saturday, I have a good buddy named Irk, and he's a German short hair pointer, and all I got to do is start smoke out the top of that green egg, and he's not leaving. Yeah, he and I do that on Saturdays. And Catherine, my wife, will always say, why do you buy 8 chickens, 4 steaks, and like a pack of hot dogs? I was like, well, I'm going to eat this all week, but a pack of hot dogs for Irk. And he'll usually get a chicken. He eats the whole chicken, and then he'll get a cut of the steak, and then a pack of hot dogs. So I got a fat bird dog. He's not a bird dog. He's a lap dog, but he just happens to be a German short hair. So he and I like to grill, and that's what we do.
Well, I know you're hoping that you get to go down to Savannah, and hope the storm doesn't interrupt play down there. Making a long trip like that, it's always interesting when you take a long bus ride like that.
It is. I think it's good. Since I've started doing this, we've always tried to take that trip early in the season. So if you do get stuck doing it in the playoffs, you've done it. Yeah. I always felt like that was a good idea. We've been to Mobile, we've been to Charlotte and other places. We've been to Savannah a couple of times. It's good to pack your team up, get on a bus, learn how to get on the bus, sit there on the bus, and get off and play. Mm-hmm. Whereas you're not doing it if you get to the deep in the playoffs, and it's like we got to go on a long road trip, because you never know, you may go on 4, if not 5 road trips in the playoffs, and so you got to learn how to do it. But I'll say this: going to Savannah is not as bad as going to North Atlanta. I would much rather drive to Savannah and an extra hour long, because I've been in North Atlanta many times at this school, and it's taken us 3 hours to get up there, where we're going to Savannah for 4 hours, and it's a much better trip, and so we're excited to get on the bus. I just hope the weather allows us to do it.
Well, we appreciate you being with us. Glad you're in Athens. 11th year here?
11th.
You don't look that old,
Just
man.
started
You don't have enough gray hair to be with this group. But and we're happy you're here, and best wishes to you. We'll follow you and keep up with you, and hope you win the next. You won all of them last year in the regular season. Maybe you can reel off 9 in a row now.
We're going to try to do it. We're going to try to do it. And thank y'all for having me on and all that you guys do.
All right, that's Josh Alexander, Athens Academy. We'll be back with more on Sidelines and Headlines.
We will. We appreciate everybody being with us. You mentioned, we were talking earlier, Appalachia had a big victory.
Oh, yeah.
After the tragic year they had with the events last year. And that was big. I think you mentioned there was some weather issues Friday night. It was crazy. I thought about going up to Jefferson and watching Jefferson Marist. I couldn't find their score anywhere. I realized they played at 11 o'clock on Saturday.
Oh, yeah. Jefferson won that game 19-0, I think, didn't they?
That's right.
And so a big win for Jefferson.
That's right. North Oconee got it done against Oconee.
41-0, I believe.
That's right.
Not much of a contest there. But, you know, Oconee, and again, we didn't see the game. I did see them play against Hap Central in a scrimmage. They made a lot of turnovers. But they've got some potential on the team, and hopefully they'll be able to come back and do well.
I noticed that, you know, if you're in Athens, a lot of folks have connections to Madison and Morgan County. They got a pretty good little team. I think they beat maybe Warren County, but they got a good quarterback. I think his name's Strickland at Morgan. But anyway, we've got a lot of great high school football around the area for sure, and we're just getting started.
Yeah. Well, I got a chance to go up to see Prince Avenue play Callaway. That was in the Corky Kell Dave Hunter Classic. First game, the TV said it was the first game in the country of high school football. Now, whether that's the case or not, I don't know, but certainly the first game in the state of Georgia. And it was like I saw a game with 3 different climates. We got there, and it was hot to begin with, as you would expect in August. And then as the weather came in, there was a lightning delay right at halftime. And so when they came out after half, it was like monsoon season had come. It was just an absolute deluge. We were in the bleachers wearing our ponchos, but I don't think I've ever been wetter at a football game than I was at that one. And the football was like a bar of soap. Nobody could handle it, do anything with it, and they were lucky that they had another lightning delay, because they went in, and when they came out, it was still wet and still rained a little bit, but it was manageable, and it became a real football game. And so Prince Avenue was able to rally from a 17-14 halftime deficit to win 40-17. And
that's pretty impressive. And they play Westside Macon.
Westside Macon. And you've got some, I think, experience with Westside Macon.
Yeah, I lived in Macon for a long time. I'm from that area. And their coach, Cedric Risper, everybody calls him Spoon.
Coach Spoon, that's right.
He's a great guy. I mean, he really he coaches some kids from tough neighborhoods there, and it's a ministry for him. He's great. But this is his swan song. He announced his retirement.
I did see that he's not going to come back next year.
He's not, and I wouldn't be surprised seeing him coaching somewhere. But he's been at Westside, I think, since he got out of college. They started the program. He was with Robert Davis. A lot of people forget the great Robert Davis, who was at Warner Robins, started that program. And Spoon was on his first staff, I think he coached middle school, and then eventually became the head coach. He's a great guy and good coach. I mean, that'll be an interesting challenge for Prince.
It sure will be. And Prince Avenue last week, of course, Andrew Beard had a typical game for him, 143 yards rushing, caught a 24-yard touchdown pass. So he had 3 scores. They had a great pass from Ben Musser to Hudson Hill, 87-yard touchdown pass. It was a perfectly thrown football as you'd want to throw on a streak route down the sideline, and Hill never had to break stride. And, you know, people see that happen, and they don't realize how hard it is to run down the field at full speed with a helmet on, which obscures your vision, and look back with a guy on you and make that catch. And yet we just take it for granted where it happens. But those are great plays.
It is. I saw an interview with Coach Dooley a few years ago, and somebody asked him what's the biggest thing that's changed about football since you started coaching, and he quickly said the sophistication in the offenses and the passing game, and it's trickled down to high school. Man, these guys can play.
Yeah.
And they can, if I had to go out for a pass in high school, like you said, I remember I was, oh my gosh, can I catch it? I could catch it if I didn't have this helmet and all these pads on, But it's amazing what these kids can do. And it's a tribute to the coaches too, and it's a lot of repetition. They go at it about year round nowadays.
Yeah. Well, we mentioned real briefly that the Appalachia win over Chattahoochee, 29-9. That was 29. They had lost 29 straight games. That's bad enough, but then of course you take into account the shooting that happened last year with the death of 2 students and 2 teachers. And that community had been reeling. And this was a moment of exhilaration and joy for that community. And people actually cried on the field after the game.
Well, there's a lot of things in life more important than football, but football can be the bond that kind of holds a school or a community together. And I know they struggle, but man, that had to be a high water mark, getting the win.
I grew up, my grandparents lived over in Bexar County, so I spent a lot of time over in the Winder-Barrow area over the years. But I don't know that I have any direct connections with Appalachia High School or everything, but I was delighted to see them to get a win and just get on the other side of things. Now, what happens the rest of the year remains to be seen.
That's right.
They got to play 9 more games, but they've got the monkey off their back. They've won a game, and now they believe in themselves. And who knows what could happen with that team and that program this year.
It's early in the year. Everybody's got hope, Blake. Everybody's got hope.
Yeah. I tell you, some other interesting games that stood out to me, again, that not seeing them, was Colquitt County won on a last-second kick, and the kid who kicked it was playing in his first ever football game.
Amazing.
Never had played in a game before.
That's amazing.
Did you ever kick?
Absolutely not. I had limited talents when it came.
Of course, I didn't play football in high school. My football stopped when I was in 8th grade at Athens YMCA. But I lived at the Athens airport, and we used to have a beacon tower out there, and it was 15 feet wide at the base and narrowed going up. And about 10 feet up was a crossbar, and I would use that as a goalpost. And I'd cut off the top of a gallon jug of milk and use that as my kicking tee and go out and kick. I got to where I could kick one from 30 yards using the old straight-on method, but I didn't have the leg strength and never could figure out that soccer-style kick that's become so prevalent.
I was about to say the soccer deal has changed the kicking game in football.
Yeah,
completely.
Back in you remember the name Peter Rejecki?
Yeah.
The Bootin' Tootin' was what Dan McGill nicknamed him. His grandson is playing high school football now. I saw his name pop up there. There's a Rejecki out there in Georgia high schools. So the legacy continues.
The legacy continues. I love the old clip. They say that Steve Spurrier kicked a 43-yarder against Auburn his senior year. They said that won him the Heisman, and I've seen an interview with him. He had the old toe with the special shoe, tied it behind him, kicked it straight on 43 yards. But, I didn't have that kind of talent.
Mm-hmm. Well, I still remember Bobby Etter. That was the first kicker that I really paid attention to at Georgia, and he was a straight-on kicker. And I remember I was out cutting grass, and they were playing in Florida. And they tried a field goal at the end of the game, and it was a bad snap, and he picked it up. And I remember, I guess, was that Ed Thelanius or Larry Munson? I don't know which one described the game, but Etter picked the ball up and managed to dive into the corner of the end zone for a touchdown, and Georgia won the game 14-7 because of that. And I jumped off the lawnmower and went in screaming to my mom to tell her what had happened. That's how big it was to me to hear that.
What year would that have been about?
He started, Etter was kicked from 64 to 66. So somewhere, one of those 3 years in there. I think it was the 64 sophomore year, because 66 was the year that Stanfield and Jake Scott did so well in the game down there.
Well, people, from looking at us, I got just as much gray hair than you are, but you're a little bit older than me. But people, I tell my son all the time, you just cannot understand what it was like back in the days when games weren't on TV. You had
Oh,
two
yeah.
games on TV every Saturday, and it probably wasn't going to be your team you cheered for.
Yeah.
If you're in the South, everybody became Alabama fans. They're the only team that played on TV on any kind of regular basis. But to listen to a game on the radio or it just now there's 100 games on every Saturday, and it's
Well,
totally
that's how people like Munson and Eli Gold over at Alabama and the other announcers at the various schools around Kaywood, Ledford up in Kentucky, they all became famous because if you wanted to follow your team, that's how you had to do it, was
Absolutely.
through the radio. The clips that you still listen to, do you hear those guys describe the play? Athlete to Washington, 80 yards. I practically have that play memorized in my head from Munson. He said that. Of course, run, Lindsey, run, all those different kind of things. And it's kind of like when you play a golden oldie. It takes you back to a good place in your memory.
Right. That's right.
And you love hearing those things, and because it brings up great memories to you. That's somewhat lost now
It is.
with the TV.
It is. I'm just old enough where I think I can appreciate that, and it was some, in some ways it was better. I think it was a little better. As much as we love sports, when you didn't plan your whole day around when you were going to watch 3 different football games on Saturday. I can remember being out on the Dove field when my daddy listened to the game on the radio. That's a memory that's bigger and more important than watching some of them on TV for sure.
My wife can talk about being in a cotton field, and they would listen to Georgia football on the radio while they're out there picking cotton, and things like that. So it was a different era as a result. But you know who we have to thank for the fact that we can see all these games now, don't you?
Who's that?
University of Georgia. University of Georgia and Oklahoma University are the ones that took the lawsuit that said this was a restraint of trade, and it got taken all the way to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said yes. And so now the colleges and the conferences were able to negotiate their own deals, and now we have football on around the clock. And
Georgia in 1980, when they won the title, they played 3 games on TV, including the Sugar Bowl.
South Carolina, Florida, and the Sugar Bowl.
Yep.
That's right. I was in part at that time with a group of sports writers from around the Southeast. We would get on a conference call each Monday and talk about our different games and put together notes columns. And the guy from Alabama always said, I've got to get over to Athens. I've got to see Herschel Walker. I mean, he'd heard so much about him, but he hadn't seen him. And it was that's the way it was back then. You just didn't get to see those kind of players. When Archie Manning came to play in Athens, I think probably 69 or 70, that was a tremendous deal. People wanted to see this guy. He was a legendary person, but all they had to go on was what other people said about him, secondhand knowledge. And it was a big game when he came to Sanford Stadium and won, as a matter of fact.
They did.
And I have a story about that. After the game, I'm going to the Ole Miss locker room, and naturally I want to get an interview with Archie Manning. And I'm down there with all the other sports writers, and Johnny Vaught, the head coach of Ole Miss, says, I've already sent him to the bus. All the sports writers are grown and said, oh, he's to the bus. Well, we wanted to talk to him. So I just went and got on the Ole Miss bus. I'm sitting up there in the Ole Miss bus while they're waiting for everybody to get on, and I do my interview there on the bus.
Did Archie talk to you?
Archie did talk to me. So then I went back to the Banner Herald and wrote the story up. We put a big exclusive on there. Exclusive interview with Archie Manning,
Well, Archie must really be a nice guy if he lets you come on the bus.
He was a nice guy. I don't remember anything about the interview. I'll have to look up the story to see if I could find it, what he said and everything. But he was very gracious to talk to me and everything.
Talking about football on TV, they say that game against Alabama, might have been his junior, maybe it was his senior year. It was the first primetime TV game.
Was that the one
ever televised?
Against Scott Hunter?
Scott Hunter.
Yeah.
And they both had between the two of them, had over 1,000 yards of offense.
That was a precursor of modern football.
That was.
Because the score was in the 30s. I think it was 30-something.
Alabama won the game.
And it was, people thought, we'd never seen a football game like that.
Yeah, people don't remember Scott Hunter, but he was a player too. And they actually won that game that night against Ole Miss.
Yeah. But now you see those games every week.
Every week.
Every week is like that. As you talked about, the offices are spread out, the game has changed and everything. But the game has been changing forever. It always has changed. We talk about NIL and transfer portal. When I first started, it was one platoon. They played both ways. And that was a big change when they did that. And then, of course, when they integrated, that was a big social change. You introduced a whole another set of people, possible athletes who could play the game. And then they've changed the blocking rules and things like that, and the strategies have changed. Football has always been a game of change.
Have you seen the documentary on the Wishbone on the SEC network?
I don't think so.
It's pretty good. It kind of talks, it's a good history lesson, some of the things we're talking about, how the game changed. You know, really focus on Alabama, Texas, and Oklahoma, which it is unbelievable what those three programs did run the Wishbone. And now that's, you know, Barry Switzer still says he thinks people ought to run it. They could beat everybody, but I'm not sure that's true.
You know, the drawback, of course, to the Wishbone is if you get behind.
Yeah.
It's a difficulty. You know, high schools, the version of the Wishbone has always been the wing T, which was a very popular high school. Mark Farba, when he was at Prince Avenue, ran the wing T. When Jeff Herron came to follow him, he was a wing T guy. And it's a very clever offense to run. It based on ball handling and deception, and you don't have to necessarily overpower people, and you can break away. But if you get behind, you really haven't practiced the passing game. And that was a change that Greg Vandegrift made when he came to Prince Avenue was, I want to be able to come back if I have to. And so they emphasized the passing attack. And of course, he was blessed with some great passers too.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think at the college level, the theory is it'd be hard to recruit to that offense. You know, if you could have Cam Newton every year running, it'd be great. That'd be fine, but it'd be hard to do that.
Did you see where they're going to retire his number?
I did. I think at the Georgia game.
At the Georgia game.
Don't tell on me, Blake. We're sitting here in Athens, Georgia. I'm an Auburn guy, so I'll be there. You know, my son, he loves it. He was really becoming a fan about the time when all that happened. So that was incredible. He was an incredible college football player.
Well, he was actually an incredible college player, a pro player, until he got just beat up and injured.
That's right.
And almost took the Panthers to the Super Bowl championship. I think they lost that game by one
Didn't they
touchdown.
lose to Peyton Manning and the Broncos?
It could have been. It was a close game as well as I remember. But everything.
You know, people don't know this. Cam Newton's got 3 national championship rings. You know, he was on the team at Florida when they won it.
How about that?
And then he won it in junior college, and then he won it at Auburn. That's pretty good. That's amazing.
It is interesting. So he's one of the few guys who's won a national championship at multiple schools. Then
Right.
There was a guy on the Georgia golf team who then later played football at Oklahoma. He won the national championship on the Georgia golf team, and then he won a national championship on the Oklahoma football team.
I think I remember that. I can't remember.
Hibble or something like that. He played up at, his dad was the head coach at Madison County High School at
That's
the time.
right, I do remember that.
And he was a really good golfer, and then he was a good quarterback too, and wound up being over at Oklahoma, transferred over there to play quarterback and everything. So unusual situation there. Well, we hope we're going to get a chance to visit with Dreco Thomas, Cedar Shoals Athletic Director. Hey, Blake Giles and JimHardin here on Sidelines and Headlines, and we are delighted right now to do a Zoom interview with Dreco Thomas, the Athletic Director at Cedar Shoals High School. Dreco, thanks for joining us today, and how's things going with you?
Things are well. I appreciate you guys having me. School year's off to a good start, and you know, it's football season, so I think everybody's excited.
Well, you know, football season last year was not too pleasant for Cedar Shoals, 0-10. So how important is it to have a good football program for a high school?
You know, we talk about a lot of times when the school year starts, if your football team is successful, gets off to a good start, that correlates to actually having a good start to your school year as well. So it's very important. You know, and we want to win, you know, every game if we possibly can, but you know, we want to be competitive, and we want school spirit to be up. We want people to instill pride in Cedar Shoals, the name Cedar Shoals, and everything that we do. So just having a football team that's really helping in those aspects is very important.
So, were you involved in the hiring of the new head coach, Rusty Sharpia?
Yes, I was.
Tell us about how that came about.
So it was really funny. It was the last day of applications, and he reached out to an old teammate of he reached out to an old teammate of his who works here, Norman Haynes, who he played with at Clemson, inquiring about the job. And Norman came to talk to me and was telling me about Rusty. I knew nothing about him. And so I basically told him, hey, today's the last day. If he's really interested, hey, go ahead and get your stuff in immediately so that we can take a look and, see if, if we wanted to bring him in for an interview. And he got everything to us immediately. And, once we looked over everything, the resume spoke for itself.
What kind of impression did he make during the interview?
He was he really made us smile because we'd be talking, he'd be answering one question, and then he'd have a thought in his mind, and so then he'd go to that, and then he'd come back to the question. And but the thing was that just really resonated was the fact that he really looked at our situation. He had done his homework, and it was a situation he wanted to come in and make a difference in a place that needed it. He was up for the challenge of coming in and revitalizing the program, and he spoke volumes about that. And he was a bundle of energy, and we were just looking for somebody that was going to really, really ignite our program. And in that interview, I think that, he was able to kind of separate himself with the passion that he has for coming in here and lighting this place on fire.
Well, Blake kind of started off with a negative, talking about the 0-10 year last year, but there's new hope in the air, right? This year. I mean, tough loss Friday, but I think the Jaguars are hopeful. Isn't that right?
I would say so. One of the things that we struggled with was, our numbers were down in the sport of football, and we needed to recruit kids in our own hallways. And that's something that as soon as he got on this campus, he hit the ground running and getting kids excited about football and playing football. And our numbers almost pretty much doubled from last year. And so that's a start. That already gets us excited about Cedar football, and and the football is the football, and from the people we talked to, we knew, in looking at his past, he's won everywhere he's been, and his father was a legendary coach over in the state of South Carolina. So, we pretty much knew that the football part would take care of itself. But, he's done a good job of recruiting the kids in our hallways and getting them out and getting them excited.
Well, we were just visiting with Josh Alexander a few minutes ago, and he said he ran up against you guys at some of the 7-on-7 camps this summer, and he was really impressed with what he saw out of Cedar Shoals. He thought you guys had a chance to be a really good football team.
Yeah, I talked to Coach Sharpie after one of those sessions, and he did talk about the praises that Josh Alexander, were giving our program, and again, that just lets you know how excited we are.
Well, Cedar Shoals has a good tradition of football, as you well know, and they played for a state championship at least one time. I think when Eugene Christopher was a quarterback, and I think was John Waters was the head coach. I think
it was under Scott Wilkins in 1995.
That's right, Wilkins. That's right. Waters and Wilkins were the two guys that were really the foundation of the program over there, and so you got to have a hope that with the way that things went Saturday in that game against Clark Central, you guys came close to winning the game. Tell us about how it wound up at the end.
So, you just you look at building a program, and you don't win any games. So you're teaching them football, but you also got to teach them how to win. You got to teach them how to play the game. I thought we throughout for 3 quarters, I think that, we were definitely the better team, but, you got to understand that it's a 4-quarter game. And you gotta stay poised. You gotta stay disciplined. I think, when we kind of turned the ball over and we got some flags and stuff, I think it kind of let the air out of us a little bit, and it allowed them to gain the momentum. So those are things that'll come game by game. They know. I'm sure they're looking, and they saw what needs to be fixed, and it's a process. We don't. Hey, everybody would love to win the state championship every year, but everybody can't. And so we just know that there's room for growth. And I know our coaching staff is going to work hard to work on the things that led us to losing the 9-point lead in the 4th quarter.
Well, you got a game this week against Monroe area, and they must have a punishing ground game based on what their first game was. So it doesn't get any easier going forward, does it?
No, it doesn't. I remember playing them last year, and I remember going into the game. I remember the coaches talking about their running back and their running game, and I thought we played them pretty good up there last year. So our expectation, I'm not in the film room or whatever, but in the end of the day, I know our coaches are working diligently to figure out what needs to be done to win that game, and hey, it's going to be played right here at Waters Wilkins Stadium in the jungle.
You said something a minute ago, a lot of people outside your business don't understand. You got to recruit your own kids. I mean, there's so many kids in so many schools walking the hallways that should be out playing sports for the good of themselves and for the good of the program. So that's exciting to hear that's happening. And I've heard several people say the last couple of days when the Clark Central Cedar Shoals rivalry is competitive, it's better for everybody. It's better for Athens. So I know there's hope over there. I know y'all are excited. I'm excited too. I'm excited for you.
Yes, we really are. I've heard this. I've played in that rivalry. I've coached in it, and so a lot of times, whether the winner or the loser, the week after that game, it can be difficult to get the kids, back up to play at that level. So I'm sure the coaches are working to make sure that the kids put that behind them, and now we focus on the next opponent and focus on little things and getting better.
Well, I don't think it's a stretch to say that based on the way you played against Clark Central, the playoffs are not out of the question this year for this Cedar Shoals football team.
Yeah, you definitely, and I don't know what goals our team is set. Coach Sharper can speak more to that. But as we look at the region, I mean, North Oconee is they're just they have a really good program right now. They're doing some great things down there. But after that, there are, from 2 through 7, anything can happen. So the playoffs, I think, and I'm on the outside looking in, I think it's a possibility, yes.
Well, that would be a great development for Cedar Shoals and for Athens as a whole and for Northeast Georgia. So we hope that works out for you well this year. Dreco, we want to thank you for spending some time with us here on Sidelines and Headlines, our brand new podcast. You have the privilege of being our first Zoom interview. So you can put that on your resume if you'd like.
I will do. I'll do it. Now, thank you guys for having me.
Thank you so much for being with us.
All right. Well,
good luck the rest of the way.
Yeah, good luck to you all going forward.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you all, everybody, for listening. Like us.
Yeah.
Share us.
Subscribe,
and we'll see you next time.
All right. Good deal. Bye.